For difficult terrain, INEC doesn't have its own roads. We rely on public roads. We don't have our own power supply. We don't have our own vehicles. We don't have our own boats. We rely on the public infrastructure. Election rides on the back of the national infrastructure. But we have a situation in Nigeria today where INEC is the only election management body that I know of in the world that during election we have to generate our own electricity. We buy generators, deploy generators to 8,809 collation centers, ward collation centers. So INEC becomes a mini power holding company during elections. When we deploy the ad hoc staff to the super racks before we deploy them on Saturday for the elections, we provide water. We carry GP tanks. We get people to supply water. We provide toiletries. We provide drinking water. So INEC becomes a mini water board during the elections. So the enormity of the challenges are just there. And then in the case of difficult terrain, we engage boat owners. We have an understanding with the Marine Union. And the Marine Union is going to be involved on Saturday next week in Bayelsa for the election. But sometimes they gang up in the morning and just jack up the price. The commission is ready to deploy it, but they said, no, we agreed with you that you are going to give us X amount. Unless you double it, we won't deploy. And if they don't deploy, Nigerians go to the polling units on election day on Saturday. They see no INEC official, they see no INEC materials, INEC again, not knowing that we're having difficulty with those boat owners. So there are enormous challenges. But what we have done, and you can see the progressive improvement in some of the most recent elections. In Ondo, for instance, in October, one of the most difficult places for us to deploy and to do reverse logistics during elections is Ilaji and Eseodo. But fantastic, we deployed to Ilaji and Eseodo in good time, and we got results and our personnel and materials out in good time, even though one of the boats actually capsized. Fortunately, we didn't lose any personnel, we didn't lose any materials. In fact, learning from experience in the case of Ilaji and Eseodo, we had to wrap the materials in polythene material. We have to wrap the materials in polythene so that it can float on the river and it won't be damaged when it's sucked in water. So we'll continue to do that. I think it's either in Ovia West or Ovia East or Ovia Southwest in Edo State. We also had the same experience. It's one of the riverine areas of Edo State. And then we are doing the same thing as we speak in Bayelsa. We are deploying to Ekeremo. We are deploying to Kolokuma or Pokuma. We are deploying to Southern Ijo. Getting to Oporoma from Yenagoa is an uphill task. You spend hours on boats on the open seas. And whenever we deploy, we also deploy gunboats to protect the materials and personnel so that nothing happens to them on the open seas. So we'll continue to see what we can do, but everything is tied to our national infrastructure. We don't have, as I said earlier, all roads. We don't have our own boats. We don't have our own electricity. We don't have our own water. But we'll continue to do what we can, particularly in the riverine areas. Not only riverine areas, but difficult terrains. Some people think that in the FCT, everywhere is like Wuse and Gariki and Maitama and Asokoro. There are parts of the Federal Capital Territory in Abuja that are not even motorable at all. So when we conduct elections, we liaise with the National Union of Okada Riders. And I remember in 2016, when the Okada riders were carrying materials and personnel to locations, somebody posted a mischievous story online to say the rigging has started, they are moving materials with the motorcycles, not knowing that we are trying to get to the village. So we'll continue to do what we can under the difficult, challenging circumstances. Mr. Chairman, on this matter, I wish to say this. Election is the only activity in which we deploy to 120,000 locations nationwide. For that activity to happen at the same time nationwide, 8 in the morning, or now 8:30 because of COVID, and end at 2 or 2:30 because of COVID. There is no other activity that happens in this country that you deploy to 120,000 locations.